Hello horror fans, and once again welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, top 5 scary videos, and it's my pleasure to inform you all that we're heading steadfast into the next neatly packaged episode of The Monster Files, our brand new original series that breaks down the big bad baddies of horror cinema. What's going on guys? As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch as we take a look at everyone's favourite misunderstood machete wielding madman and all the times that his plot armour was thicker than his fleshy bulbous head, and take a look at the top 5 times Jason Voorhees should have died. Roll the clip.
Do you know what your gift is? No matter what they do to you, you cannot die. You can never die.
There's a legend around here, a killer buried but not dead, a curse on Crystal Lake, a death curse. Well, for fans of the Friday the 13th franchise, which I hope many of you are, you'll know that there are 2 things to expect from a Jason Voorhees based flick. 1, he's gonna kill a lot of people, 157 victims to be precise, over 12 slasher movies and a staggering 4 decades worth of cinema. And 2, he can't die. No matter what you throw at him, heck, he can even survive in the vacuum of space, but we try not to talk about Jason X. Created by Victor Miller alongside the legendary visual effects of Tom Savini, the boy Jason is up there in the halls of the horror greats. So let's take a look at all those times he should have died. Before we do that though, you know how it is horror fans. If you're a fan of this video, The Monster Files, Friday the 13th, or just top 5 scary videos in general, please hit that thumbs up button and show us some love in the comment section down below. I try and read them all, and really, you guys are great. Keep it up. If you'd like to get in touch with myself or the creative team here at Top 5 Scary Videos, make sure to take a peek at the info box down below. On with the show. Kicking off at number 5, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, 1986. Let's not beat around the bush now guys. It's safe to say that anything past part 4 of the Friday the 13th franchise gets a little bit weird, and Jason is heralded more as some mystical horrific zombie than the relentless hellbent killer that we know and love. In part 6, Jason Lives, he's explicitly designed to be a supernatural force, raised from the dead via, wait for it, electricity. Yeah. Directed by Tom McLaughlin, Part 6 really did miss the mark in most senses and paved the way for a decade's worth of weird silver screen depictions of Mr. Voorhees. Although you can't deny that it's an incredibly entertaining horror film and absolutely hilarious in many parts. However, and it's a big however, this has one of the most insane Jason death scenes in the entire franchise, and I don't say that lightly. It's really, really good. Part 6 features the return of Tommy Jarvis after the controversial events of the 5th installment of the franchise, and he's ready to confront his literal demon, dig up Jason's body and burn him on a pyre. Of course, we know that's not how it goes down, but in the end, played out on Crystal Lake, Tommy Jarvis ties a boulder around Jason's neck with a chain, trapping him beneath the water in a weird sort of poetic justice. Oh, and then he takes a motorboat to the neck, exploding him in a burst of gore. Is he dead though? Of course he's not. Coming in at number 4, Friday the 13th, Part 3, 1982. Now we're talking, because in my personal opinion, parts 1 to 4 of the Friday the 13th are just horror gold. They're everything we want from a slasher flick, and then some. While in part 3 of the franchise, Jason not only survives a 15-foot drop from a barn while wrapped in a noose, he also survives an axe to the head because, you know, he can't die. Released in 1982 and directed by Steve Miner, Part 3 was the first film in the franchise to feature Jason's trademark hockey mask and the first silver screen depiction of a horror icon. Oh, also it was released in 3D because, you know, that's what they did back in the 80s. Friday the 13th Part 3 is probably the most violent in the entire series, featuring some real eye-popping death scenes, so compared to Jason's final comeuppance, it seems pretty tame. Although it's the score that does it for me, fantastically composed by the hallmark Harry Manfredini, who pretty much did the entire franchise. Layered on top of that is the audience's slow realization that, yeah, maybe his death in Part 2 was a fluke, but after what happens here, this Jason Voorhees fella, he ain't quite right. Next up at number 3, Friday the 13th, 2009. this may be a little bit controversial, but I'm actually a fan of the 2009 remake by Marcus Nispel, who in my opinion had already done a stand-up job of remaking Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Although definitely not a shot-for-shot remake of the original Friday the 13th, it's more of an amalgamation of the best parts of the first 3 films. We get a brief glimpse of Jason's mother, but the bulk of the plot is mainly made up of that horror trope we all know and love, a group of teenagers horrifically hunted across a haunted campground by a machete-wielding maniac. At the climax of the film, Clay, played by Supernatural's Jared Padalecki, manages to latch a bear trap and chain to Jason's neck before it's thrown into a hay hopper and Jason is painstakingly pulled into the machinery. Of course though, the real poetic justice comes from Jason being stabbed in the chest with his own machete, but the real knife twist comes with the "say hi to mommy" line. That's just rude. Seemingly this was the last time we saw Jason on the silver screen, but of course, as we all know, there's no way he's dead. Swinging in at number 2, Friday the 13th Part 2, 1981. And yeah, sorry to play fast and loose with chronology, but I'm trying to be fair here. Part 2 is just a better film, and if we're being honest, it's my favourite film in the entire franchise. In many ways, I much prefer the I hold sack than the hockey mask, but that's just for me. Different strokes for different folks. At the time, this film received such scathing reviews that it was almost laughable, but what did they know, right? Friday the 13th Part 2 is a horror masterpiece and a very important landmark for the genre. Part 2 fires us in just months after the events of Friday the 13th, after the final death of Jason's mother, Pamela Voorhees, but oh boy, that really riled him up, and Part 2 sees a sack-wearing Jason on a machete-wielding revenge spree. This was also Steve Miner's directorial debut that left him picking up Victor Miller's legacy in fully fleshing out the Jason Voorhees character. It plays heavily on Italian horror cinema with slow, drawn-out death scenes paired with a screeching cinematic score and a visceral visual realization of Jason's trademark violence. Just when you think he's dead too, he bursts through the window in the same way that he burst out of Crystal Lake at the climax of Friday the 13th. Great stuff. And finally, at our number 1 spot, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 1984. Because how the hell Jason survived this one, we'll never know. It's hilarious really, the fact that this 4th film, titled The Final Chapter, actually saw a staggering 7 more films follow it. But because of that, this final scene is even more telling. In this film, Jason's death was actually intended to be just that, his final death. The intention was for Tommy Jarvis, played in this film by the awesome Corey Feldman, to pick up the mask and mantle of Jason Voorhees as a new type of killer, which played out in the plot of the 5th film, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. But of course, Part 5 did so incredibly poorly that was torn to shreds by fans of the franchise that they had to bring Jason back in Part 6 to please the ravenous hordes. Still, it doesn't explain away the fact that Jason had his literal head hacked to pieces by his own machete, demonstrated with some awesomely vivid visual effects from Tom Savini. The final chapter is held dearly by horror fans as the highlight of the entire Friday the 13th franchise, and what a swan song it would have been if Jason would have finally been defeated. But as we know, there's a legend around here, a killer buried but not dead. Unfortunately, horror fans, that's all we've got time for in today's episode of the Monster Files. Cheers for sticking around all the way to the end. If you're a fan of this video, please show some love with a thumbs up and make sure to ding that subscribe bell so you can stay up to date with your daily dose of horror. As always, I've been your host Jack Finch. You've been watching the Monster Files on Top 5 Scary Videos, and until next time, you take it easy.